1999 Dodge Durango.
No le encontraron el clavo a mi
1999 Dodge Durango. Every now and then you come to a point where you think to yourself, I'm sick and tired of the bullshit. I got to go straight to the source. So here with me, I got Leti Villarreal. Say hello, Leti.
Hi.
And after all this time of supporting and talking about the man, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the candidate of choice, none other than Omar Escobar himself. Say hello, Omar.
Hello.
The reason that I wanted us to come together is I wanted to talk about this ridiculous post by Dina. I'm looking at this and they're supposedly selling it like it's news, right? The cycle of a narcotics vehicle by Dina Garcia-Pena. They're journalists, according to them. Leti, you're not a journalist, are you?
No, I'm not.
I'm not a journalist.
I'm not a journalist. I'm just a coward according to Gocha and Leti La Loca according to Ros Barrera.
But you got a brain and you think, right?
I do, yes.
And can you read?
Of course.
Here we've got this history, the cycle of a narcotics vehicle. Omar, you were driving this vehicle.
That's right.
Did the Durango talk to you?
Not that I remember.
It didn't
I
tell
hope
you,
not.
hey, I'm a narcotic vehicle.
No.
You're going to ride with me. You're going to have to kind of put up with narc shit because I'm going to be hauling stuff that you don't know about.
Yeah, no, I don't think a 99 Dodge Durango does that.
Between you and me, did you check the clavos?
There's no clavos.
Are you?
You got to understand that the vehicle was a wrecked vehicle that had been previously wrecked. So they didn't need airbags and.
Because according to what I'm reading over here, they have built this Durango up so much. It's like the most sought-after vehicle of 2020. The 1999 Dodge Durango, the black 1999 Dodge Durango, was once seized by the 229th District Attorney's Office. At what point, when the investigators were checking what it had, did you jump in and say, "This belongs to me"?
Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way.
This is a very misleading article, by the way. So how exactly does that work?
Well, if the vehicle was seized in any kind of criminal activity, a forfeiture action is filed. Of course, it goes to court. If the action proceeds in court, the vehicle may be forfeited, and then, of course, later on, pursuant to a local agreement, it ends up being sold at auction. People show up at auction and bid on the vehicles. And that's the way all auctions are supposed to work.
Can you tell us if anybody can go to these auctions? And I'm talking about anybody.
Anybody can go.
Anyone,
Anybody,
and that includes an elected official. Anybody can bid on these items.
Anybody can go to the auctions. That's true.
Okay.
The agents themselves can't really bid on those vehicles.
Okay, so it's
the people who are seizing the vehicles. In other words, the agents themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They're carrying weapons or whatever it might be. Agents that they really don't, even though they're not excluded from bidding, but they usually don't.
Okay, they usually don't, but there's nothing to say that they can't.
Yeah, no. Well, the law does not prohibit them. It has to go. It has to go. I mean, it's going to go to the highest bidder.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
Or it goes to the highest bidder or whatever an interlocal agreement may call for. The vehicles are just going to be sold to the highest bidder. Since DPS came in, sort of the surge, there's not very many people that attend auctions. Some do, it just depends. But there's just been a lot less activity since DPS came in.
And why is that again?
The surge sort of decreased a lot of the narcotic activity, a lot of the activity along the border.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to say there's fewer seizures than there were several years ago. But when DPS began their surge operations here, it had an effect on narcotics trafficking. And then you saw more of a shift towards alien smuggling in recent years. What you start seeing is pretty much clunkers
Right.
You
Right.
end up with a bunch of clunkers.
Right,
man.
watching this video, you can tell that is a really luxurious. No, just kidding. It's a clunker. It's a money pit,
Yeah.
pretty much. So, are illegal aliens also caught in these vehicles lately, or these?
Well, that's pretty much all you see now.
Now it's all you see instead of drugs?
Because DPS, I think, and Border Patrol, they pretty much, those are the seizures that you're going to find.
Okay.
For the past couple of years, it's becoming less and less likely that you start seeing really narcotics trafficking.
Right.
Or that you're going to have the larger loads back in the day. But, I mean, it happens from time to time.
Right.
That will happen. But, you see that now a little bit more often. The last couple of years, I think all the law enforcement agencies have seen that, it's pretty much a lot of it alien smuggling. Some of it is going to be drug smuggling, but
Right.
a lot of it is alien smuggling. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm listening to you talk and I'm thinking to myself, maybe there's a demand. Maybe I could go back to the old business of moving stuff. And if I look at this 1999 Dodge Durango, it just tells me I'm the vehicle to do the job. I want to haul as much drugs for you as possible. And you're riding around, right? Like you're this pimp political boss, right? You're riding around. What were you doing in that mom and pop gas station when this happened?
Well, actually, I was coming back from McDonald's, had gone on a McMuffin run. And,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
Well, usually I don't really go to sleep that early, but I know, I had gone to McDonald's. We gone to
No, you can't say that. You got to tell me that you were out in the middle of the night doing some badass drug
Something
deal.
nefarious. Yeah, something nefarious.
No, unless eating a McMuffin is. I mean, it's bad for my cholesterol, that's for sure.
I mean, is that like a code word? I had a McMuffin, cocaine mixed with something else.
No. It's
You're talking about the bread and the egg.
Yeah, it's that. Usually, at every now and then you're gonna get those urges, I suppose. And I like either Whataburger or McDonald's. And luckily, Rio Grande has both.
Right. And what time was it?
Well, it would have been sometime around midnight, I would say.
That's when they have the best burgers and everything at Whataburger they do, and the freshest biscuits at midnight. And that's when they have.
Well,
they don't put them under the lamp. They're not under the lamp of death.
It's my turn to put you on the stand. So what you're saying is that you're guilty of wanting breakfast at midnight. Is that what you're saying,
Well,
Counselor?
it's the best time to eat breakfast. It's
It
right
is.
after midnight or right around midnight.
Okay, so
agree.
you're guilty of wanting breakfast in the middle of the night. You drive out, you get your McMuffin, te pones todo grifo on the egg McMuffin, right?
Yeah.
And were you driving when you got struck?
Yeah, I was driving when I got struck.
You were driving, all swerving all over the place because the egg McMuffin's gonna throw you into a whole alternate universe, right?
I don't remember the McMuffin throwing me into any other universe. No, it was a pretty simple thing. As I'm going home from the east to west, right in front of Roque Guerra, about to turn to my house south, just get into the center lane, and as I'm going to turn, the vehicle struck sort of the back of my vehicle.
I watched the video. It struck the back of your vehicle.
Yeah.
I didn't see any damage.
Well, that's because it's a 1999 Dodge Durango, and there's already enough damage on the vehicle. You won't be able to see anything else. I mean, there wasn't very much damage at all. To the other vehicle, there was, but not to the vehicle that I was driving.
Okay, then maybe you can answer this. Why is this news?
Hell, I don't know.
According to this article, it happened on, it says early February.
Right.
Before midnight, it says early February. Why do you think it took them so long to have this news story? She talks about research to some of the comments, but it doesn't take much to research. You had a fender bender and an old car. So why do you think it took so long?
Well, by the way, shout out to Dina Garcia-Pena's father. He attends almost all of our auctions at the DA's office. He likes to bid up the vehicles. So he's really somebody who's helped us out. So I want to recognize Dina's dad at this particular time now because he is a faithful attendee of District Attorney auctions. So he likes to go and bid up vehicles. And
Maybe he wanted the black Durango.
Well, I don't know, but
I want the black Durango.
I think everybody by now wants the black Durango.
But I do know that Dina's dad is a very loyal attendee of auctions. That's for sure.
Okay, well, shout out to him. Okay, so you got struck by this girl who's coming out of the parking lot there at, I'm not sure what the name of it is. The police were called.
Right.
Okay, Rio PD?
Well, the same owner owns the country store and the Kramer store, so it's the same.
It's the same.
It's
Okay.
the same stores, yeah.
So the Rio PD was called?
Yeah. She called Rio PD. Yeah. So
Oh,
Real
okay.
PD was called to take a report on it.
Okay.
Because I think her vehicle had, these newer vehicles, I mean, it doesn't take very much to...
It sure does
I mean,
not.
it doesn't take very much to damage
Right.
them. And it was kind of damaged, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm watching the video, right? And you give the cop something. Was it a wad of money?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because Leti Garza Galvan, right?
Uh-huh.
And I've started calling her the rat so much, and I can't stop reading what she says without doing the little rat noise. You gotta.
Don't start. Please don't start. Okay.
But she says, and I quote, she says, here it is, Friday night, and he is carrying a large wad of money in his pocket. I mean, I could see her seeing, like, with x-ray vision, looking around everywhere, and just, like, she sees, like, red, bright light wherever there's money. How does she know you got a wad of money in your pocket?
What I may have had is a wad of credit cards, a wad of cards. No, but they probably would have asked for our identification. I think that's fairly normal.
Did the cop
stuff.
ask you, güey, ¿cuánto traes contigo?
No, that's not they conducted themselves very professionally.
Did you, like, name drop, hey, well, take a look at my ID, look at who you're messing with?
No. Actually, I think the young lady who was driving the vehicle, I never really told her, anything, and then she kind of recognized and said, "Oh, well, you're that person, is it?" Yeah, but I wanted, she seemed a little bit shaken up about the whole thing, and but otherwise, she acted very professionally too. She acted very well.
Okay, I gotta ask you this question, but how well do you know Annette Bazan?
I've known her for years.
Have you ever shared drugs with her?
No.
Porque aquí dice ella, she's saying it flat out, that he uses those vehicles so they don't recognize him, drug money for his campaign. He's done it for years.
Uh-huh.
So, ¿estás usando drug money para tus campaigns?
Well, that's what she says, apparently. and no.
Okay, let's just clarify really quickly because you used to be in this, I'm going to call it a group. Mrs. Clarissa, I believe her name is B. Alvarez, had a video where she states that when she ran, when Leti Garza Galvan, please don't do the rat noise, asked her to run, she didn't put a penny. She didn't know where the money came from. I imagine that if Annette is saying that drug money is used for your campaign for years, then when you were that group, then she's basically saying that Leti Garza Galvan and that group funded the campaign with drug money.
He's been
Either
too
that or
busy.
she's just
He's been too busy
wacky.
getting his money from cartels and vehicles that he confiscated. You ran with these people a couple years back, right? Like I asked Clarissa, because you're talking about Alvarez, the president of Roma school board, right?
The school board, yes.
Like I asked her, how did these people, did they give you money? Did you give them money? I mean, what was all that like?
You're talking about Leti?
Yeah.
Give them no. I mean, no. They were busy running the school. Well, supposedly running the school, and now we're over here trying to run the office and trying to kind of do what we do. I think sometime in 2016, things they just began to I'm not gonna say go south, but kind of thing. People started doing their own thing. Kind of like I think separation began a lot earlier than now or 2017. I think it began earlier.
So where does the money for your campaigns come from?
Well, we have contributors. For example, this last time we had, and they're all listed in campaign finance reports. So, you can see that. You're going to have different contributors.
Well, according to the article, you got this young man named Jose Roberto Garza, right? And he's listed as somebody that you paid money to for your campaign.
Yeah, and the 2016 campaign I've known Mr. Garza for a while. So he took a couple of days from school, to be there at the polling location to help out whatever's needed there. So I went in and compensated, obviously, those days that he would have missed or for his time there. I think that's pretty standard. It's going to happen.
You basically paid him for helping you out on the campaign.
Right. And certainly for being present there at the polling location. Sure, at the polling locations.
What's the big conspiracy with this guy? What are these guys going to present? ¿Por qué lo hacen como que es una novela que they're about to expose some conspiracy involving, according to Chema Alvarez, 3 different county agencies and whatnot?
3 county, I don't.
That's what he said.
Well, yes, he did come up with an incredible. It literally rivals an episode of Ancient Aliens. Did they exist? His conspiracy theory, and he even ends it with
I quote, I can
go
see
ahead.
at minimum 3 county departments involved in some type of conspiracy, non-policy enforcement, official oppression, or a combination of all 3.
Well, I'm not sure what he's smoking, but
Maybe he smoked an egg
I
McMuffin.
think that he might be a little tipsy. I'm going to say just maybe a little tipsy.
Yeah.
And that's why he typed all that.
Okay, I should have started this way, but let's go back to the actual story, because this is, I don't know if you've read this, but this is what she presents as the cycle of a narcotics vehicle, all right?
That's the title of the article, by the way. The cycle of a narcotics vehicle.
She starts by saying that it's an accident report shows a white Ford Fusion driven by Destiny Gonzalez was exiting the county stores, number 2, located on West Main Street. When the driver made an unsafe turn, was that you or was that her?
that was her.
So she made the unsafe turn. She struck the left rear tire and bumper of a 1999 Dodge Durango driven by 229th District Attorney Omar Escobar.
The
That's
entire title.
Of course.
Right.
Because that's the only reason why this is even on here in
Right.
October, 5 months after it happened. You got 1999 Dodge Durango. Now I'm waiting for the story on this vehicle, like some epic freaking story. And what I get is this. The black 1999 Dodge Durango was once seized by the 229th District Attorney. That's you, right? Your office seized this vehicle. True or false?
That it would have been probably the height of task force.
It was the Border Patrol. We'll find out later. Dina
Okay.
doesn't even know her own research.
It probably would have been one of the federal agencies that would have seized it and then turned it over to Haida.
The vehicle
or
driven-
turned it over to the DA's office, either one.
The vehicle driven by Escobar was registered to RGCCISD employee Jose Roberto Garza, but Escobar's home address is listed.
Right.
How do you explain that?
Well, it's pretty simple because that vehicle, Mr. Garza had purchased it. Of course, I know Mr. Garza, and I know him well. At that point, I had offered to purchase the vehicle from him. Well, he offered it to me anyway. And the problem is that I would have had to insure it in order to drive it and to determine whether you could whether it's worth fixing. At that particular time, by the time that accident happened, I had placed it on my insurance, that's for sure. And so we're trying to, there's some work to be done there.
I think the real conspiracy is that you were even shopping for this 1999 Dodge Durango.
Well, the thing about it is that the thing with buying clunkers is you don't know how much money you're going to spend on getting it roadworthy. And
Right.
You find one thing and then you find another and then you find another and so.
My experience is you buy other people's problems. Why were you shopping for Garza's problems?
Well, as we started talking about it, it's like, well, this thing is going to get kind of expensive to fix. And I said, well, I'll try to fix it and maybe kind of use it for a while and let's see how long it lasts. I'm pretty sure that, the next stop is somewhere in I guess a metal recycling
Oh my
business.
God.
I mean, because
You're making the cycle of the narcotic vehicle
So-
even worse.
there's only so much you can do with a vehicle that's in that sort of a condition. You can only really drive it safely at slow speeds and in town. So you can't really do very much with it. You can go back and forth. But
So the article begins with the accident,
Yeah.
minor accident, I might
Right.
add. Then, of course, she goes backwards instead of the way in sequence that normally people would do. Mentions you quite a bit. And at the end, the owner, which was Luis Alonso Garcia, nor the driver, which was Santos Daniel Galvan, answered the petition. In other words, they abandoned the vehicle. Was the car even worth? Let's say that the car hadn't sold. How much would it have cost your office or the county or whomever to keep the vehicle or to tow it to a junkyard?
no, I mean, you can't.
Would it be more expensive than Jose Roberto Garza buying it? Because it's pretty old.
I mean, you have to. The thing is, the only thing you're trying to do to get it sold is just for it to turn on. But getting it roadworthy, like putting brakes and
Right.
fixing air conditioners and all that kind of stuff, it starts getting really pricey. So if the vehicle goes for $500 or something like that, it's going to take you another $1,000 or $1,500 just to be able to get it worth. So sometimes a buyer may think they're getting a great deal, and then all of a sudden you figure out, well, wait a minute, this thing's going to cost me a lot more to get it running. Unless you're in the used car business, then if you can, you fix it up and you've got some way of fixing it up at some cost, and then you're able to sell it at some kind of a higher. But that's not some of these older vehicles that they're basically just ranch vehicles and.
What happens when people like Dina Garcia-Pena's dad or this gentleman, Garza, nobody buys a vehicle? What happens to it then? Do you have to...
No, you have to re-auction the vehicle.
Until it sells?
You have to re-auction. Well, you're going to re-auction it until it sells. I mean, you got to...
Okay.
I mean, even if it's $100, because some people will come in and just buy it for parts.
Right, true.
How much do you spend trying to sell these cars on a monthly basis?
Well, you're going to auction them off.
Right, but the advertising...
Right, the advertising, and sometimes you're going to put a little bit of work on it just to try to get them to turn on. You might have to put a fuel pump, or just depends on whatever little things it might be to be able to get the vehicle to turn on. Mm-hmm. But there's some things like you're not going to put a new transmission, or you're not going to put in a new motor in the vehicle. You're just trying to get them to turn on. I think pretty much all agencies do that. They try to make sure that they get the vehicle turn on.
So a more accurate depiction of the life of this 1999 Dodge Durango. We go back to Flint, Michigan, somewhere where Dodge is set up, and it rolls out. And then for so many years, it's a family vehicle. Then it gets tired of being a family vehicle, and it goes on the wrong side of the law. It wants to become a narcotic vehicle.
It's a rebel.
It's a rebel. So it wants to find its way. And if we got Santos, who just takes the vehicle and he puts 179 pounds in 4 bundles into this vehicle, and the Border Patrol stop him and sees him, and the Dodge Durango is scared because for the first time in its life, it's in trouble, right? Mm-hmm. And so Santos, he's like, hey, the drugs, the vehicle, none of this is mine. I'm just eating a McMuffin in another dimension, and what's going on here, right? So then the Border Patrol sees the vehicle, right? And you're off doing, your DA stuff, whatever it is that you guys are doing, and it comes into your possession, right? The Border Patrol say, hey, we seized this vehicle, sell it. You turn around and you ask the Durango, do you turn on? And it's like, yeah, I turn on just fine. What compelled Garza to buy it? He sees it. Jose Roberto wants to buy it. He buys it. And then he realizes, oh, crap, this thing's a clunker. And then you turn around and you say, I want to buy it from you.
Well, we have that discussion. And it's like, at some point you start realizing, okay, there's going to be a money trap. I mean, you're going to try to get it roadworthy.
And he's your friend. You know, I think that you basically...
It's Starr County, I think, but I know Beto's like, you purchased a vehicle, you're going to need to really fix her up.
So now it's like a pit bull that nobody wants, and it's trying to find a home, and you're like, all right, I'll bring it home.
I mean, it's like, okay, well, let's try to, you can fix it up. And I mean, at least you think it's a good idea at the time. Yeah, no, it's not going to, and then all of a sudden you start putting parts in it, and it's like, okay, when is this going to end?
So then you get the urge, right? You're guilty of getting the urge to eat breakfast at night. Yeah. And so you go out to McDonald's, you buy an Egg McMuffin, you're driving home, and then this nice girl comes over, taps you with their vehicle, and then we wait 5 months for this new groundbreaking story.
Yeah. Well, I remember her insurance company at one point, was her insurance company or one of the insurance companies indicated that there was a lawyer involved, and that the lawyer was Marty Garcia.
Marty Garcia Vela?
Yeah. That I remember that they said that she was involved inquiring into the case. And I said, okay. But eventually the Fusion's insurance accepted liability. Uh-huh. And it said, well, but when you try to calculate damages, well, what kind of damage do you have to a 99 Durango? It's like,
basically the Durango is already given up on life because its life dream of being a rebel is gone.
Yeah, so it's pretty much.
You didn't take the sledgehammer to the back and fake the damage and then try to get money out of it?
I said, no. What are you going to do? I mean, it's got scratches. Why are you going to try to, what are you going to try to say?
According to these people, you're this evil man, right? And I'm thinking to myself, surely he's a lawyer, right? Mm-hmm. Every lawyer in town has gone and sued for just about everything. You didn't sue her for hitting you?
No. Why? What's the point? I mean,
you're a lawyer. You got the lawyer flexing to do.
No. What's the point? I mean, I think I think it was just an honest mistake. I think that she just didn't see the vehicle, and it was just a mistake, and it was an accident. And so, what was the point in trying to make claims and trying to get money? I mean, there was no point in that.
Okay, well, here I got another curveball for you. We got another attorney coming on, right? Abel Villarreal Jr.,
who I still contend can't possibly be a Villarreal. I'm sorry, I was married to a Villarreal. I have two Villarreal, well, three actually, but two Villarreal sons. And no, this boy can't possibly be a Villarreal.
Okay.
That's all I have to say about that.
Point made. Abel, somewhat Villarreal Jr. According to the district attorney, according to you, right? It takes some time to investigate some matters. Is that you? Are you controlling the time that it takes for things to get investigated?
I think all of us know that investigators have their timeline. You can ask them to investigate something, but they have their caseload and they have their timeline.
This man worked in your office.
Yeah.
For how many years?
A couple of years.
He gives me the impression that you pick up the phone and you say, guys, don't do this fast. You know, I got a minimum of so many years before I get this investigation. Don't you dare do it fast.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way.
I don't recall the outrage by some individuals on here when the district attorney indicted people way over 3 years after their alleged acts passed their statute of limitations, only to dismiss once he got his headlines. What the hell is he talking about?
Well, I think we talked about the story. I know that the Monitor called me about it, and we kind of talked about having to review these particular cases in light of the different forms of probation. I think those are unique cases that where people have to kind of take into account whether or not, you know, they knew that they were on the kind of probation where they could not vote. So some of these cases were presented, but I think, like I said, these cases we're going to have to really review all of them, and we've been public
what does it have
about
to do
that.
with the Durango?
It doesn't have anything to do with the Durango, as usual. You know, Abel Villarreal always his comments have zero to do with any.
Well, you got to
particular
understand.
topic.
You got to understand that Abel Villarreal's world revolves around me. I mean, that's.
I see that.
That should. That should.
You know
be very
what?
clear.
I'm not even going to say that's
So-
narcissistic of you because it's true.
Well,
I've seen it.
he wakes up in the morning apparently thinking about me, and he goes to sleep.
Does that
thinking about
trouble
me.
you? Does that trouble you? That's a little bit weird and creepy.
Just a little bit. I mean, that's the way it sounds, like a certain obsession. But you know, that's the way it is. I know that, you know, he was when he was at the office.
God bless him, but it doesn't seem, forgive me for interrupting, he doesn't seem to have learned much.
No. I was going to go a different route with that. I was going to say he worked under you, right?
Right.
How relevant was he to his work? I mean, we're talking about Durangos, and he's coming over here out of left
I
field.
mean, I don't know. Here's the thing, you know, Abel, for as much as he talks about it, he only tried one case and he lost it. So I don't know of any. He tried one case to a jury and lost it. So I don't know where the sort of the lawyer par excellence comes in. But you know, I can tell I'm constantly on his mind.
He wanted to be DA at some point, right?
Yes, that's true. He had told more than one person that he wanted to run for DA. He wanted to be DA, and you know, this would have been shortly after Marty ran. So I guess at some point the plan was that he wanted to run for DA. I sort of remember that.
Does he actually think that sitting behind the seat that you sit at and have sat at for as many years as you have, that he's somehow going to pick up the phone and make investigations happen at the speed of Gocha Allen, Snorton, and Abel?
What's curious to me is that if anybody was involved in the double, as far as our staff was involved in the investigation with the Rangers and sort of side by side working with the Texas Rangers, would have been able on the double murder of Oneida and Lulu. So ostensibly he supposedly worked with the Rangers for a couple of years. From the moment it happened. Well, that's a good question. I mean, I'd like to know myself. I don't know what Abel Villarreal did with the Rangers for 2 years or for as long. I have no idea what he did with the Rangers.
That's something else.
He talked about the case. He said he'd go over there, and I'm going to go visit with the Rangers and maybe learn a little bit about the case here, or case there. But it's strange that he is part of this sort of movement indicating that the DA has not done enough, or that our office has not done enough, when if anybody knows that a case goes at a particular pace, it would be him, since he was working with the Rangers on this double murder. If anybody should know about the natural progression, the life cycle, as it were, of a case, a criminal case, it should be him, because he was working with the Rangers on this case.
Agreed.
And nothing, according to him or his side or the people that he associates with, nothing. Well, okay, but Abel, you were assigned this case. You were supposed to be working with the Rangers on this. So were they doing everything that they could or not? And it would be interesting to hear the answer. Were the Rangers, in his mind, doing everything along with himself, everything that he could for 2 years?
And that's something that I think a lot of people still don't understand, is the fact that what you get elected to do is to basically run the office, to run the prosecutors. And everyone else alongside of Abel, they kind of make it want to sound like everything is your fault. Everything is your responsibility. You're the only one to blame. This is the second time he does this, where he criticizes your office, and especially at a time where he was working in that office.
Well, I think that's the irony, is that, look, you're talking about cases, or especially, well, his side, I suppose, has talked about cases that he worked on, and he's been silent about his work on the case. Supposedly, he was working on this case, him and Marty.
Right. I was going to
both.
say.
Yeah, both.
You would think he would shed more light on it.
And you would think so, yeah.
And there's been absolute silence about
their role
in the investigation. I'm not talking about disclosing sensitive information. It's just to say, hey, were the Rangers working on the case or not? Do you think that they were working on the case or not? What were you doing with the case? Were you working with the Rangers or not? And are you satisfied that the Rangers did everything that they could to make this case happen? And not just the Rangers, but all investigators, including the Sheriff's Department investigators and even DA investigators that were assisting. There was a multitude of agencies. Even Rio PD was helping. So it was a multi-agency force. At some point, even federal investigators were also involved in the investigation of this case. So you have these critics who talk about the DA. The DA doesn't go and investigate cases.
And just to be clear, you're talking about murders. We're talking about a Dodge Durango fender bender.
Right.
And he brings this up, the whole murder thing.
Right.
Well, I don't.
But he always does that, though. Abel Villarreal always does that. Like I said,
well, at some
goes
point,
off topic,
well,
and so does Ened Bazan.
I've sort of become used to the notion that anything that bad happens in their lives or in the world, that somehow or another that I'm responsible for it, as though I'm some omnipotent, omniscient, all-knowing God. And sort of like I said, they rise in the morning thinking about me, it appears, and probably the last thought on their mind before they go to sleep is probably me.
They're going to take that sound clip and it's going to say, basically your picture saying, I'm an omnipotent God.
Because that's all they're going to hear is that you're God, yes. Yeah. They're not going to hear the rest.
Yeah, well, like I said, the notion is ridiculous. It's really dumb.
It is.
Okay, so he goes on to basically say, if the time it took to investigate the matter is your only issue, please compare how long it takes the DA to investigate his selective cases. Even more, how long does it take him to prosecute? Also, did anyone involved get a raise in a promotion at Rio ISD? Did anybody get a raise?
Well, several people got raises, I suppose, as they get promoted. And so I think he's probably talking about, because Mr. Garza, I think that there was a reorganization. So rather than have one supervisor, there was several supervisors. Mr. Garza is one of them. Mr. Garza was made one of them because of this time that he's been there with the district, and as far as foreman of the custodians. So there was a promotion to several people. Rather, they reorganized, and then there was a promotion. So
what Mr. Abel Villarreal is insinuating is that he gave you a 1999 badass marijuana-carrying Dodge Durango, and as a result, you turned around, picked up your political boss phone, and said, give this guy a raise. I like the Durango.
Yeah, in other words, a money trap. And so, well, I mean, the whole notion is preposterous. I think anytime you have changes in power or whatnot, there's going to be changes in organization and leadership, and that's what's going to end up happening. Of course, they want to make connections back and forth. Sometimes you end up with money traps, and I don't know that they justify any kind of consideration.
He's talking about, and this is another thing that I don't get about Abel. He says these prosecutors love to use the special crimes unit for investigations they consider special. This is looking pretty special to me. We're talking about a Dodge Durango that probably, if you get $1,000 for it, that's a lot, huh?
That would be probably a lot, yes.
Okay, so
I think
that would be something that your, maybe a drunk relative would buy from you in the middle of the night.
It's only gonna last so long, and then you're gonna end up having to put parts in. That's for sure.
Are you selling the Durango? Is it for sale?
I don't know that I would really feel safe selling the Durango because it's probably an accident waiting to happen later on. I mean,
Mr. Escobar, are you telling us that you have a conscience and you wouldn't sell that to endanger anyone?
I can imagine that vehicle being in an accident or something
Okay,
happening
now
to
because
it.
you said it, Marty's going to reopen the case and come back and sue you and blame the
Yeah,
vehicle.
no, I mean that's the thing. Vehicles that are that old, eventually something's going to go wrong with them. That's the problem. Those really eventually either have to end up at a ranch somewhere, and so was or they end up at a scrap yard somewhere, it's being sold for metal.
Let me talk to you about going back to Annette Bazan, right? She comes over here and she says, "Why is everyone so surprised? He's been doing it for years. How and where do you think this campaign contributions come from?" We talked about that, right? And she says, "Good job, El Tejano, for exposing this drug-using, drug-dealing scammer of a DA."
Okay.
How do you respond to that? You know that I've been going after Gocha. I know Gocha personally. I know his whole family. I don't know you, but I assume you don't do drugs.
I've never used drugs.
You never used drugs?
Never used drugs.
Not even Tylenol?
Well, Tylenol and pharmaceuticals, of
I've
course.
been waiting a very long time to put somebody from the other side of the law enforcement agency on the spot with that question.
Yeah.
You don't use illegal drugs.
No, never have.
But according to Annette, you are a drug-using, drug-dealing scammer of a DA. You ever sold drugs?
Never used, never anything with illegal drugs.
If Gocha was to come up and say, "All right, let's put an end to this," because he said that he doesn't listen to what I say. He said that he doesn't read my posts, but he's never said I don't do cocaine. Would you take a follicle test?
I'll take a hair follicle test any day, any time.
So it's the only test we don't have to study for to pass, right?
I don't have a problem with it at all. Let's do it. In fact, hell, if he wants to put on a drug patch, just like defendants put on, let's put the drug patch on also for the rest of the campaign. I've got no problem.
There you go. And I don't see any of his friends, and that's the one thing that I've noticed. All these posts that we've had, not sure, this pretty much this entire year. No matter how much you mention his drug use, nobody comes to his defense on that.
I don't do drugs. I'll take the follicle test.
Right, but the thing is that I've noticed that no one ever has come to his defense and said, he's not a drug addict. No one has ever said that, and he himself has been very silent on it. There's no sign of I think you were hoping, for a defamation of character lawsuit.
Yeah.
And he hasn't done that either.
No.
Now, either he thinks that he's above it all and you're, pretty much a convict.
No.
And
He does drugs. He doesn't want to even go there. That's what the whole thing's about.
So there you have it. Starr Countyans Omar Escobar Jr. is willing to take a hair follicle drug test.
Yeah, you can do hair follicle, you can do patch, whatever. It doesn't really matter to me. Whenever any opponent is up to it, I'll take the challenge. It's not a problem.
There you go.
If it's a hair follicle, if it's a drug patch, whatever it is, that's fine.
What about a debate? I don't even want to talk about anything that to me. This is still too early for us to talk about the DA race because it's still too early. But what about a debate?
Yeah.
How would you see sitting down side by side on a chair somewhere, and you got Gocha with a mic, you got you on a mic, you got somebody mediating, maybe a panel, maybe a couple people from his side to come and throw you some what about the murder cases, and you can answer those questions, and a couple from our side going, "Hey, what did you do with the last 8 ball, Gocha?"
Debates are standard practice, and they used to be standard practice, I guess. I don't know
They
if
used to be,
still
but
are,
in the last debates that we saw were a little disappointing in the last election because the questions were prepared and shown to each candidate. Would you be willing to come on BPS if Gocha Alan Ramirez would agree to do a debate here with a better public servant?
Yeah,
you're here now, of
if
course,
we're going to
but-
debate, that's fine. Whatever the issues are that need to be debated, we can debate them.
So you're saying yes, you would?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got no problem with it.
Other than one of the candidates doing drugs, what are the issues? I haven't found any yet, but that's for a different time and a different place.
Right, I agree.
If anybody listening out there's got any issues, then let us know about it. Moving past the Dodge Durango, Annette Bazan, you're using drugs. You got Leti Garza Galvan. Wait a minute. DA Omar Escobar was driving a vehicle that had been sold in auction, held by his office, that was registered to someone he paid during his election. Okay. Did you pay him more than the vehicle was worth?
I know that I paid more to fix it. That's for sure. That's for sure. I definitely have paid a lot more to fix it.
How many thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands, how many millions of dollars? If we put the amount of money that the lawyers got out of RGCCISD, 1.5 million, how does that measure next to the Durango fiasco scandal?
Well, I mean, you got to figure that vehicles at those ages they're only worth at this point is pretty much their scrap metal.
No,
worth.
don't tell me that this thing was worth it's bulletproof, right? It's got everything is brand new. You open it up in the inside, it's like the Taj Mahal inside.
No, there's no way. That's not at this point in a vehicle. I think I don't know. Somebody had commented, it's like, hey, this looks like something I drive, which is pretty much a clunk.
Ramiro Alcazar said, sounds like the vehicles I own as never owned a new one. $1,000 would be value, although I usually accept payment in lieu court.
Yeah, I think so. Sometime you're gonna have spendthrifts that kind of like driving around in older vehicles. My other vehicle is 2006, of course, and then the newest vehicle that I have is probably 2014.
No, you're a political boss. You need to step it up. You need to make them the 2019 GMC Sierras. What does Gocha drive?
I have no idea. But he wears boots that are embossed in gold.
Thank you.
So
you got to step it up, counselor, because you're falling behind the times.
Yeah, no.
I noticed that you're wearing like regular work boot shoes, sort of.
Yeah,
you're
no.
not wearing the gold embossed DA boots.
Well, the thing about it is that growing up, our family was always at best, middle class or lower middle class, I guess, if you want to say that. But somehow or another, like so many families at that time, our parents made a dollar go a long way, stretched it. And so driving around in older vehicles or used vehicles or whatever it is to me not embarrassing. I don't really, I don't feel the need to be driving luxury vehicles or to be trying to drive or trying to obtain luxury vehicles. That it's something that the reality is that it's something that we've never had.
You're gonna start telling me that you try to actually save money at the DA's office.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is that, for example, in the budgets that we run from the general fund, when you look at the general fund ledgers at the end of the day, when you add in sort of the grant funding and everything involved, but especially the general fund, and the general fund tends to be the taxpayer funds. I always came in under budget on the general fund.
So you do try to save.
So the general fund, the way it works is that the general fund is what is allocated from the taxpayer money. So whatever is raised in taxes, that's allocated amongst all the different departments. Our department, we've always come in under budget when you start looking at, especially when we started looking at whatever general funds we were able to be given. Yeah.
So you basically described yourself as the typical Starr County family, así la gente de nosotros, la gente que de aquí de Starr County, todos hemos, alzado nuestros pennies. We take care of our pennies. We don't aspire to, even if when we get money, those of us who are true Starr Countians do not aspire to have luxury vehicles because to us it's a waste of money. And so you were raised that way. Basic foundation of being conservative, fiscal conservative, like most of us, in order to survive.
And he just described to me why Letty hates him so much, because he's not this guy that's going to go in and open the deed.
Right, and live beyond his means. You don't live beyond your means.
Well, that's the thing, that if you're going to try to live the lap of luxury, you're probably not going to make a good public servant. Living a luxurious lifestyle, wanting to live big, it's just not something that's going to happen. I don't know. You're going to have difficulty reconciling both.
Especially when it's going to cost people who might be on a fixed income or whatever more money in taxes in order for them to live that lifestyle.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. Because these general funds, and I'm not talking about grant funds, and I'm talking about forfeiture funds. When it comes to taxpayer, which is a general fund, obviously, I think people are afraid of taxes being raised. The trick is, kind of being able to operate within, for example, the general fund. And sometimes you just have to kind of, make whatever cuts you need to be able to make it work. I remember back in 2013 to 2014, there was going to be a proposed salary increase, and it wasn't much. It was like 2 or 3%, and I was concerned that salary increase across the county probably would have. Was probably, and I told the auditor back then that I was concerned that if we gave raises across the board, that eventually we would have to take them back because money would begin to decrease because mineral values fluctuate, and because mineral values are going to fluctuate, that means that appraised values are going to fluctuate, and then that means that if they fluctuate, if they decrease, then you're going to have less tax revenue, and if you have less tax revenue, that meant that you were going to get less allocations of money, and you're going to end up having to cut at some point or another. So I said, well, why are we doing this? And so I think every department had to make its own decision, but I had concern, and I made my own sort of changes or decisions based on being concerned that was not gonna that was not gonna. And then later on, we did have a decrease in revenues that we're just sort of coming out of at this point. But so that did happen. So it's one of the things that you have to be watching as your DAs. You're having to watch sort of the financial status of the county and looking at this.
I'm watching Gocha Allen trying to break down the door to the vault of the school's money. He's bringing in his old buddy, Baltasar Salazar, 2012. They're going after some Fed agent, and they act like they don't know each other. And they're doing all this stuff, and they keep saying that it's your fault, that you're stopping them, that you're stopping progress, that you're somehow setting yourself up in opposition of kids and kids' education. How do you respond to that?
I mean, I think it's self-evident that I don't know if it's paranoia or what exactly is going on, but I mean, obviously you have entities that are run by boards, and they have to make determinations. They have to make decisions. Obviously, maybe they didn't think that they were getting their money fast enough, and there was some desperation about that. But like I said, they're the ones who really blame somebody for everything, or blame me for everything, I guess.
They do. They basically say that you're in opposition of all of that. And I've got their candidate of choice. They got G. Allen at the very front saying, what was it, that thing that he yelled out?
Tell them, paraphrasing, tell them that the DA is...
the DA had everything to do with this?
Had everything to do with this, yeah.
And even Baltasar...
On the school board that was illegal. The school board meeting that was considered illegal.
Even Baltasar said, no, I've never even spoken to the DA about this.
The thing that Gocha did, though, there is that he did the old, disregard that comment thing where you yell in court and the judge says, well, the jury will disregard that. Even though Baltasar disagreed with him, that he had never contacted Mr. Escobar, people had heard him already. He basically, put it out there, and so that people could hear it. And that's one of his tricks. And as a defense attorney, has he ever prosecuted a case, Mr. Escobar? Gocha, has he ever prosecuted a case? Because I know he's a defense attorney, and that's pretty much the opposite.
Well, he was an assistant DA back in the 80s. That's as much as I know.
We don't know too much about him. That's the thing.
Pancho Cerda, which would have been out of Hebronville.
Uh-huh.
So that's as much as I know. I don't know of any cases in particular. I'm sure if you're there a couple of years, you would have at least picked up some cases.
He seems to have a little disdain for law enforcement in the way he speaks, and for investigators in general. The way it's like he wants everything rushed, and I'm not sure if that's because he is a defense attorney, and of course his clients are usually...
It's selective. It's convenient. He only says it when it's convenient to him. When it's not convenient to him, he's talking about doing things the right way, which means in his favor.
Throwing out the word justice a lot, which is a philosophical term because there can never be justice for everybody. There's somebody's always going to feel left out.
But I see this as an opportunity. I mean, if you are in fact the political boss, where does that put the other guys like Eloy Vera who have been around for years? Where does that put the Peña family? Where does that put? Because as far as I know, I see Leti, I see Bernice. I know exactly where they're coming from. I know that those guys have tried to be political bosses since I don't know when. Are you a political boss?
Historically, political bosses come from political families of being in politics for a long time and then controlling large portions of economic power in their areas. And so when you talk, see, they throw this phrase around of political boss, and yet they don't define it. Political boss is sort of a term that is used as a sort of a phrase that is used for anybody they don't like, or that is not with them, or that does not agree with them. I mean, when I think political boss, I'm thinking Chicho Guerra, Partido Viejo.
Right.
Y a veces se comienza la gente a hablar, oye,
Enrique González.
Bueno, pero si lo vamos para atrás, estamos hablando, el Partido Nuevo ya entró después de World War II, después de la Segunda Guerra Mundial.
Right.
So Enrique González would have come in after Chicho Guerra, and of course caused the dissolution of
the old party.
That faction that would have come in from the West, associated with the Roma side, which would have been Chicho Guerra, and then you had, of course, the new party. Then you end up with the new party later on, and of course the dissolution of the new party. But the political bosses typically have some generational, like there's a generation.
It's like an inheritance.
Right. There is some sort of a generational presence in politics, but not only that, the generational presence is not just, it's not just that, it's the control of wealth, property.
It's the patron-peon system.
Right. So I don't see how you can have a political boss without having the economic power or some sort of family pedigree,
which you do not have.
No, I mean, yeah, our families have been from here since
the 1700s or
the
so.
1700s. I mean, since before Starr County was.
Well, so according
Starr
to your
County.
99 Dodge Durango, you've got the wealth.
Well, I mean, if you think about political bosses, if you really think about political bosses, you're talking about somebody who exercises a large amount of power and a large amount of wealth. And I don't know that you can really exercise one without the other, or showing one without the other. I mean, I just don't see that. So it's curious that one would say he's a political boss, yet not some of these people not see themselves as political bosses or political wannabes. And so political boss wannabes.
If anybody comes from and let's be blunt, or I shall be blunt, if anybody could be considered a real political boss, it would be the Peñas.
I was going to say the first occurrence of even seeing the words political boss put together, it was in Bernice Garza's lawsuit, where she came after you fired her. Right. And she's trying to tell and paint to the court that you fired her because you are a political boss.
Well, I'm sure that's how she wanted to paint it. But the thing about it is that if you come from a family that was in power for 20 years, controlling county finance, and when I think county, that kind of power, you're controlling taxpayer money, a large portion of taxpayer money. I don't know that there is any one political boss in Starr County. There hasn't been one since the days of Chicho Guerra and Enrique González.
Correct.
Roma has had their people. Rio Grande has had their persons. Even La Grulla have had their persons, their representatives. I don't really know that there's one person that has been able to control any large faction of governments. They may be perceived, but actual power, you're going to have to go back to the days of Chicho Guerra, and maybe the days of the feuds, of the battles between the new party and the old party. But political bosses, one political boss is that just doesn't exist. You have spheres of influence, but there's not going to be any, because you ask about County Judge Eloy Vera, you ask about Basilio Villarreal, you're going to ask about maybe other persons in Roma. I don't know that you can say that any one person is a political boss. Now, if you think about it, I'm a fairly newcomer to politics when you compare it to most everybody else in politics, almost everybody else. I'm one of the newcomers. We don't come from a pedigree of a long line of succession of where do we have
politicians?
That? Yeah, where do we have that? Where you have this long succession of power, but but you can't really have that. I don't know that you can really have that moniker. I don't know that you can be called that title, anybody can be called a political boss in Starr County.
I don't think that we're ever going to see in Starr County a true political boss as you had in the past. Voters will not allow it.
No, you're not going to have that because
That's a thing of the past, and it's going to stay there.
That's something that existed many, many years ago in the political patronage system. But if you look at election results, anybody who you think is a political boss at some point has had victories and losses. The idea of one political boss in Starr County is sort of ridiculous, and much less somebody that doesn't wield any kind of economic power,
Yeah.
They're trying really hard to, it's really obvious that they've grouped together a group of people that have religiously stood behind each other. If you've been keeping up with the videos that I've been posting and the interviews that I've been posting, you see people coming out and basically saying that they're getting away from them. A lot like what you were talking about in the 2016. After 2016, there was like this separation.
Yeah, early 2016, you could tell that it was happening. I think everybody just started kind of going their own way. I think Bobby talks about it. He's largely right that eventually there was a separation that became, that was kind of keeping their distance, so to speak.
And so now here we've got 5 months after a fender bender, this story, they're trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. And I don't see this going anywhere now, but I see it as some kind of a prelude. I think that it's going to get uglier. I think these people are trying to reach for whatever they got, and they can't find anything, so they try to twist things around and make things look, as bad as they possibly can. They've been trying to throw mud at you for, since March, since April? Earlier than that?
Well, probably since 2017.
Since 2017?
The attacks began in 2017 when the legislature passed new laws, election fraud laws, and I sort of just did public service announcements indicating what the laws were, what they entail, started explaining what they were about, and sort of warning people, look, these laws work this way. They're meant to operate this particular way, and they're going to be enforced. So there's sort of this argument back and forth as to whether the laws, should have been passed in the first place and what they were for, and the back and forth, and whether so there was sort of this open challenge at some point whether these laws should be enforced at all. We're being told sobre aviso no engaño. In December there was an outright effort to say, look, you can't vote disabled by mail if you're not disabled. And when it became clear that that was being explained, and that there was that they felt that there was going to be less mail-in, I think from that moment there was attacks. It was that moment there was real attacks.
So is that what they're trying to champion by putting Gocha in your place? They're trying to win back the ability to use the mail-in ballots the way they shouldn't?
Well, in the end, I think a lot of this goes back to 2017 when you think about it. Going back to 2017, mid to late 2017, that's where a lot of the anger and the rage came in. And it had to do with the election laws that were passed in 2017 by the Texas legislature. And then, the enforcement of those laws.
But it happened across...
Or investigation of those particular cases, especially dealing with election fraud.
Well, it's a good thing that you made time to come out here and talk to us about this 99 Durango fiasco scandal thing. Any other scandals that we should be wary of or watch out for?
Well, I'm pretty sure that at some point or another they'll come up with something if it serves their purpose. Here's the thing, Osiel. Here's the bottom line. Most of us in the legal community, we know each other at some point or another. We end up together on some things. We may end up against each other on some things. But the one thing that people need to see, I think that all of us have to see, is that the people in power, whoever they may be, they're either going to be puppets or they're going to be independent. Okay? And independent doesn't mean necessarily not being able to work with others. But you must be able to stand on your own 2 feet. And yeah, you can have people that back you up, that help you out politically. But for positions like a DA, like a county attorney, like a sheriff, law enforcement positions that are elected, not appointed, the people have to make that decision. Since I first ran, the one thing that I take a particular amount of, pride in, is that I've had a great deal of politicians against me and with me at any particular time. And when I have had my detractors, the people that do not agree with me, I've had a great deal of people that have opposed me, politicians that have opposed me, and a great deal that have been supported me at some point or another. The most important thing that I think for somebody in a position like this to be is they have to be independent. They have to be willing to go against their friends or acquaintances, whoever it may be, when the time comes. You just cannot be ordered around by anybody.
On the altar to serve the people in general?
Well, it has to be. I mean, in the end, you may have something, so they may support you here. I mean, that's going to be politics because all of these positions are elected. But I think the most important thing to me is that you have to be able to be willing to be independent. You have to be independent. I think my independence has shown itself by the number of people that have, at some point opposed me and at other times been, supportive of me. But I think independence is really important. Independence of being able to part with particular factions when they're wrong. And I think Bobby Salinas talked about that. And I can't say enough good things about Bobby Salinas. I really like his philosophy. I like the way that he expresses himself and the way that he thinks. And I think he espouses the very same independence that people demand of somebody in office. He's kind of said, look, there's going to be times when you're going to have to separate from people, either because they want to order you around or they want you to do things that you probably should not be doing or things that you don't want to do. And you have to be willing to say, you know what, you do your thing and I do mine. That happens in politics. But what I think is important is the notion of being independent, of being able to say, you know what, when I've had to be independent, I have been independent. When I've had to go against something that I thought was wrong, then I've done it. And that's going to be the hardest thing for, I think, anybody in political office to do is, are you willing to say, no, I don't agree with you on this. I can't go along with whatever you're proposing. I have to do whatever I think is best. That's something that I think that most electeds and I think most people that are running for office need to understand. If they don't, that there's going to be times where you're going to be called to be independent, and you have to be ready to do that.
What is the price of someone not being independent like that? What is it going to cost in the long run?
Well, I mean, it's not. I don't know that there's necessarily there could be a financial cost. It just depends. You've had some people that are over here, they're indicted in federal court for bid rigging or for whatever they're doing over there in Weslaco. That's kind of the price you're going to end up seeing. At some point, there will be a price to be paid, and it's probably going to be by the public. When you have, you're going to have a certain amount of greed that may drive a political movement. Eventually, there's going to be a price to pay.
I look at Danny Garcia and I'm asking myself, what's the price that he's paying?
He's going to have to answer that for himself now. I think everybody's going to have to kind of think about these issues and think about these things, and as it comes to politics and elections. Once again, are you willing to step aside or step away from a political group when you can no longer support their goals or their objectives? And either you are or you're not. And that you have to be ready to accept that when you break away from something that you don't agree with, then that there's going to be consequences, and the consequences are something that you see, for example, attacks on social media. Everything's fine when you're together, no problems. You're the greatest person on earth when you're together. All of a sudden, you're no longer agreeing with mail-in votes, or you don't agree with mail-in votes, or you don't agree with whatever they might be doing. Now you're public enemy number one. You're going to have to accept the criticism that will come from leaving a particular group because you don't agree with it, and you don't agree with their objectives. And in this case, we're seeing it now play out. When you leave a particular group and you don't go back, and you don't sort of toe the line of certain people, and especially those persons that live the lap of luxury and wealth, and you're not doing anything to protect that way of life, especially within a political group, and you leave that, be prepared for an onslaught of criticism, an onslaught of conspiracy theories, and really an all-out targeting to destroy you if you're no longer toe the line of political groups. That's just how this goes.
Well, I appreciate the trust that you put in a better public servant, Starr County, Texas, and in me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to sit down and talk at any time.
Oh, that's
and
fantastic.
So, it's just get a hold of me and,
I
we'll make some
normally
time.
don't send you messages because I think of you like always being behind the desk and doing all this kind of work and stuff. But is it all right if I send you some more questions on the stuff that I'm looking at there?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. That's not a problem.
Okay, so I'm not going to be infringing upon people's murder cases and stuff like that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. You got my vote.
All right, thank you very much.